I take influences from all sorts of different areas, right from like the old masters and my painting background, and to fashion, to commentary of what's happening around me, my life, and society in general. And then I just kind of mash it all up. Really, it's kind of a surreal mix up of things. Really, I don't. It's hard describing my own work. Everyone goes, "What the hell would you describe your work?" And I'm like, surreal. That's it. I just leave it at that usually.
And always with, well, not always, but more recently with, everything's contained in the circle kind of thing. So is there something about that, aesthetic?
Yeah, it's partly because like the circle's never ending and it's energy, and kind of I put a lot of symbolism in some of my work. Some of my work is just fun. And then some of my work has a lot of symbolism in, and it can be symbolism from different cultures, different religions, different philosophies and dreams. And it can be symbolism from like old paintings, like Dutch still lives and things like that used to use a lot of symbolism and portraiture and whatever. So I kind of put that all in. And then so the circle's kind of like the never-ending energy, the never-ending cycle of things. And there's a lot of nature in my work, and that form. And then the other part is everybody does squares and rectangles, so I'm like, I'll do a circle. I'll make it tricky to frame. I'll do that.
And in terms of like the design process, is it largely a digital process, or is it some kind of a sketching analog leading up to the final design?
Yeah, I use digital, and I use digital to sketch as well, because it kind of keeps it with the way my brain works. I had it drummed into me quite early on that you should use a sketchbook, you should sketch all the time. But I find that quite difficult, in the sense where I'm changing my mind constantly. I'm moving things about. And so sometimes I'll do like a quick doodle if I'm trying to lay something out very quickly, or I've got an idea of something. But yeah, to me, it's slow, if that makes any sense. And then I kind of get bored, is a really bad word, but yeah, I lose interest, and then I'm just like, no. And digital as well helps me keep it more organic and more surreal. I found that if I plan something and over plan something, it just doesn't work. It becomes contrived, a little bit emo, like my 13-year-old self is trying to come out kind of thing, and it doesn't work. You've got to get, with surrealism especially, you've definitely got to try and get that balance where you're not going to end up looking like you should be on a heavy metal t-shirt, or that kind of that vibe. So yeah, I always describe my work as kind of like little subconscious bubbles, little, like, the space behind the mind kind of thing comes out, and sometimes I'm surprised by what I do. So sometimes I'll finish a piece and be like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Right. Just kind of letting it flow, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that works better for how I work, rather than, and it is in that true sense of surrealism as well. It's very much subconscious and not planned. I definitely lose something when I plan my work. Definitely.
I think, yeah, personally, I'm always drawn to surreal art as well. There's just something about it that says something about our world in a way that can't be expressed in a normal, regular way.
I love surreal art and the whole ethos behind it. It's funny, when I only did a foundation. I'm not degree educated, but when I did the foundation, I remember surrealism being a bit of like a dirty word. It was, seen as a bit cheap, and everybody loves Dali, so you're not allowed to say Dali is one of your favourites and things like that. That kind of like,
you love Dali.
Yeah. It is like after I finished college and everything, I started out doing portraiture, but I really struggled because I really loved surrealism, and it wasn't until the internet and artists putting their artwork out there that you're kind of like, well, actually, yeah, I can do surrealism, I can do lowbrow, and it's valid, and there's a place for it amongst everything else, amongst all the other art.
And there's kind of almost an oxymoron in that it's surreal, but actually the elements contained in your work are, really accurate, and there's a realism to the elements in there. as well.
Yeah, yeah.
There must be a
So
lot of craft goes into it.
it's a lot of found imagery and then I make them because I use found imagery and collage to create my pieces. So I'll create them digitally and lay them out, and I'll either leave it as a digital piece and make it look like it's a painting and work into it digitally as if it is a painting, or I will render it to be an actual painting or a mixed media piece, or street art piece or anything. Yeah, so I definitely start out at that point, and it is starting out as collage really. So they're all like vintage elements and using things from old books and botanical books and things like that. Yeah, and then found images of models and what have you, using a bit of Adobe stock and all that. And then do my thing to it.
Magpie approach kind of thing. And I said, I sort of came to your work from Blackburn Open Walls and the street art side of thing, but it's almost, your work is, I would consider it more kind of fine art in a way, but it just happened to be on a street. I mean, where do you see, it fitting?
I wouldn't say I love doing the street art thing, but I didn't start doing that until Blackburn Open Walls in 2016 when I got introduced to Hayley Welsh, who's obviously a well-known street artist, and she was setting this thing up, and it was her that said, give it a go kind of thing. And as I've said before, it was like I popped my street art cherry then, really. It was like I kind of just got a taste of it then, and I absolutely loved doing it. But originally I have started out more the fine art route and more the contemporary art route, but I love trying everything and anything, and I love the extra dimension it's given to my work, that you can have that juxtapose, again I hate that word as well, but that juxtapose of like having a really fine art kind of piece in the middle of a derelict building that's already full of graffiti and street art and everything within that. And I like having that contrast. I think it kind of works.
And what about, when you see people kind of interacting with the work or reacting to it? I mean, I'm thinking of the first bit in 2016 was on the side of the mall in Blackburn, which in the nicest possible way, it's not the most attractive building. Yeah, but then just to put this kind of, to kind of put this, really beautiful artwork there, and then to see, I guess there's probably an element of surprising people walking past and going, oh, wow, okay,
Yeah, I think, I mean, like a lot of street art, when Blackburn Open Walls was first suggested and bringing that to Blackburn and putting street art in Blackburn, people's initial reactions were like, we don't want the streets graffitied there, Blackburn's a shithole enough without adding graffiti and tagging and all that to it as well, because people didn't understand exactly what street art was. And then when people saw it go up and they saw pieces like mine go up, and the other artists, I mean, we've artists that have done absolutely amazing work in Blackburn, all of them, everyone was like, oh my god, and they loved it. And you find that the community really embrace it, and that's one of the great things about street art, is how it can change an urban landscape, and you can have all these like beautiful elements in, and you can have political elements and comedic elements and just little bits of fun and everything. And community, you find that community really embrace them and really take them on as their own. Like, nobody vandalizes the street art in Blackburn because everyone's so protective of it. Nobody goes over it. Everyone's just like, no, we love this. This is now an icon of the town.
That must feel pretty good to have curated that.
It's nice being part of something like that. Yeah, definitely. And it was definitely a project of the warm and fuzzies, where you're giving something back to a town that you live in, and people really appreciate it, and it makes them see the town in a different way as well, and look at the buildings and the architecture in a different way, things that they hadn't noticed before. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I never noticed that. Oh wow, that. And then you've got a piece of artwork that enhances it and celebrates it. And
like
really,
the Case McLean piece, I think springs to mind there.
Yeah. definitely. That, yeah.
And how did it all actually come about then? Where did the idea come from, and kind of from inception to, you know, to where it ended up?
Oh, Blackburn Open Walls. Yeah, that was Hayley Welsh's brain baby. That's her. That's totally her thing. I think because she's done a lot of festivals of her own all over the world, really. She wanted to bring a bit of that back to her hometown. And I think it started out originally so that her gran could see her artwork and see what she does.
Oh, nice.
Up close and personal. And she really wanted to give something back to the town and introduce artists to the town that people wouldn't normally get to go and see unless they go to, you know, they go out further out. Yeah. So yeah, it's all her and Andy's, like their thing, their little, yeah. And I thought it was great.
But what about in terms of, you know, attracting, you know, because with, you know, world-class artists there, like, you know, several world-class artists, you know, it's kind of, I suppose, it wouldn't be the obvious place on the street art map of the world, so to speak, but it's you know, it's been fantastic, hasn't it, really?
Yeah. Hayley's a people whisperer. She's just like, she's one of those people that you instantly just love and can relate to. And yeah. And I think probably when she's looking at other artists and stuff and saying, hey, come to Blackburn, you know, she's got that gift of being able to get that going. She has a lot of enthusiasm about her. She's a very positive person, and so is Andy, and I think it's infectious, that, and they're very hardworking. So yeah.
And the hashtag was make Blackburn beautiful, wasn't it? So do you feel that's been achieved?
I think Blackburn is on a continual journey at the moment. There's been a lot of renovations in the town, a lot of changes trying to improve it, and I think the street art has really enhanced that, and it brings in tourism, it brings in people to look at it as well. You've got things like the flower festivals that they're doing, and you've got the Festival of Making. Blackburn's kind of become quite a little hub of creativity, really. You've got like the Bureau and Festival of Making, you've got making rooms, you've got Prism Gallery and things like that. And it's got this really nice art community that's really flourishing now. And you've got a wide variety of the arts. So you've got community arts and you've got more contemporary arts, and then you've got the street art as well. And it all kind of complements each other and complements that, I think.
It's nice to kind of be able to change that perspective, or the perspective people might have, you know, on the area into something, you know, completely different and really positive as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think Blackburn for a long time has suffered hugely with the political changes and the austerity. It is a town that has quite wide division. You've got your middle classes and your upper classes, and on the outsides of the village, and they all live on the outside of the town, they all live very nice. But then there's great poverty in the centre, and near the centre there's a lot of people living below the poverty line. And that for a little bit that was really shown in the town, but the council and the creatives and the planners and all that have really kind of come together and gone, no, we want to change things. And I think it's helped with bringing different communities together, different ages, you know. Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful thing. And I think places like the Bureau that's been set up, people have found a place that when they're struggling that they can go to as well, and they're embraced and they're loved and they're helped. And I think that's great. I think it's amazing.
It's really important and a great thing to do. And it brings me on to my next point about some of the work you're doing at the minute, the Affirmation Art. Just explain, you know, all of everything that's about.
Yeah, Laura Lee I've been working with for a few years. She had a gallery in London, and now she's like more of a curator and a bit of an instigator and everything. And she set up a art challenge for kids for lockdowns, you know, give them something to do. And then she said, could you actually do something for the older kids, teenagers? And I was like, yeah. And because a lot of my work is about feminism and positivity, and you know, it's taking something dark and making it positive and making it beautiful. It was kind of like going along those lines. And I'm a big believer in you know, you should have some confidence and positivity about yourself. Everybody has good parts, everybody has bad parts. You know, we're all totally individual. There's nobody at all the same. We should never compare. And I think we should spend more time reflecting on those good parts of ourselves and being like, yeah, actually I am all right. Yeah, actually I am good at this, or I can do this. And I may not be good at that, but somebody else is good at that. I don't have to be everything. And we wanted to give that to children, especially in the sense that they look at so much social media. There's so much comparison. You know, you look at the Kardashians and things like that, and you're like, oh, my butt's not that big, or my waist isn't that skinny, and I mean, the thigh gap. I mean, what the hell is a thigh gap? You know, why is this a trend? It shouldn't be. People are all different, and they should all be celebrated. And I wanted to reflect that in this project. So it's getting young adults from the age of 13 to 18, where they create a collage piece, a portrait piece of themselves that uses symbolism or words or colours, whatever they want to put in there, about the positive sides of who they are and what they like about themselves. And then we'll pick one that stands out to come and do a piece with me. So they will collaborate with me on a piece where, you know, it'll be very much driven by them and what they want to put across and what they want to say, and then we'll work on it together. And then the finished original piece will be hung and auctioned off for the Spark Arts charity, children's charity. So yeah, hopefully it'll be good. I'm excited to work with a young mind. See what perspective they have and what they want to say. I'm really looking forward to that.
Sounds like a great project. And is that something that you're sort of keen to do, kind of, you know, just generally in terms of using your kind of art to kind of, you know, to channel some positivity and to nurture some talent as well along the way?
Yeah, definitely. I think as creatives, we never do anything on our own, and I've had like so much advice and help and encouragement from other artists and a lot of contemporaries, that it's nice to be able to pass that on. And I think sometimes as well, you can get your degrees and your masters and everything, but you can still leave university or further education not quite knowing how to start and what to do, and you can end up being quite negative on yourself and just go, right, I'm just going to get a 9 to 5, I can't do this, because I don't think you're necessarily taught how to start making a living and start getting your artwork out there. It's something that can make you very vulnerable as well. You're putting every time you put artwork out there, you're putting a piece of yourself out there, and you've got to have a certain thick skin and confidence. It's like when you're doing street art and people are actually watching you do it as you do it. You've got to have a certain kind of confidence to be able to go, yeah, I haven't totally messed this up, honestly. Like, this is good. Yeah. I'm just going to work this out.
Is there something, are you, you know, I guess, are you know, some people are, there's always something to improve, or there's always, you know, has there been a piece that you've done when you've been completely happy with it?
I don't think I've ever produced anything that I've been completely happy with, ever. I think it's, I don't think I will ever stop learning. I don't think I'll ever stop trying to improve things. I'm constantly trying to push things further and learn new things and become better at what I do. And yeah, I don't think there'll ever be a point where I'll be totally like, oh yeah, I totally nailed that. I totally got that. Because I can see all the mistakes. I can just be like, oh yeah, no. And it's odd as well, because sometimes I will put things out where I think, okay, that kind of works, and then it doesn't get a very good reception, and then something that I'm not very confident about, that I'm a bit kind of like, oh, I'm not sure if it's a bit shit, people absolutely love. So right. I just think I'll just like get it out there.
It's a bit like, and I'm just going to digress a bit, but I was watching a couple of documentaries recently, and it was, you know, it was like, you know, a band, and here's my terrible memory, I can't remember who it was, but they'd done something like 10 tracks on an album, and you know, they were like, oh, we've nailed it, we put all the work into it, and the record company said, we need one more track to make it an album, we need an 11th track. So they just knocked out this track like in a couple of hours, and that ended up being their biggest hit of all time, kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it happens with art as well, I think. Sometimes I've done things in a rush because the gallery needs it for a show, they need that extra piece, like the extra song or something.
Right.
You're like, hey, I'll just throw this together, and then yeah, that ends up, and you totally bullshit your way through it, and then that ends up being the one that everyone absolutely relates to and everyone loves. But I think that relates to how I work anyway. Like I said, if I overthink it or if I overplan it, it doesn't work. But if I kind of just, if I'm very organic about it, it works a lot better. So obviously if I'm in a rush, like, I work even better.
Masterpiece after masterpiece. And again, on the social issue, I think you've created a piece for, you know, the big conversation at the minute, which is Black Lives Matter, and just explain kind of what, you know, led you to create that, really.
I actually created that piece before this whole thing happened, the events recently. I created that piece for a street art piece in Lincoln earlier this year. I did it in March. And then with recent events, it was very hard because obviously I put a lot out on social media about how I might feel about something or what I'm thinking. And with recent events, I was just so unbelievably angry. I was just so furious. I was kind of like, how in 2020 are we looking at people and thinking they are lesser than us? Why are people getting shot? Why are there people still being, you know, at a disadvantage in a world, in Western worlds where, you know, where they're very rich? You know, why have we still got this colonial overhang kind of thing going on? And you know, I was on social media and I was just kind of like, I can't believe the amount of people that don't know their history. They don't know American history, they don't know British history, they don't know European history, they don't know the history of slavery and things like that, and why people of colour would be so freaking angry. They don't understand it. Like, they're like, oh, all lives matter, and it's like, yeah, but so yeah, I just ended up just being like, I hope that people educating themselves continue afterwards. And I'd done that piece earlier in the year and shared it, and it seemed very relevant for now, really. But yeah, it was I just spent the last couple of weeks really.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, isn't it? And hopefully one where the conversations where we're all having now can kind of, you know, help move things along and actually, you know, create some kind of change. I
just hope people begin to educate themselves really on the history and everything, and that I've heard a lot of people who don't quite understand it, that are like, oh, slavery ended 400 years ago or whatever, and not understanding the lynchings that happened and things like that, and that, you know, there was still, like in America, there was still segregation until the 60s. It's recent history. It's not history from ages ago. It's recent, and there are overhangs of that now. Like in this country, we still have overhangs of like the Roman era and the medieval era and the feudal system. It all layers upon layers, and people need to understand that, you know, there's still overhangs of that. And I think if you're getting a tits and twist, you know, because there's people protesting because things are unfair, then you need to have a long, hard look at yourself and question yourself. Why is that? Why are you getting upset about that? You know, all these people can't be wrong about how they feel. It's a form of, it's like you're trying to gaslight them. Like, things weren't that bad, get over it. Yeah, it's, yeah. Yeah, I hope. Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see kind of how what is happening now is, you know, going to be sort of reflected in street art society as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's going to be fascinating. I think even with the whole pandemic and seeing how artists and street artists were interpreting that and influenced by recent events and everything, and then obviously with the whole protests and the Black Lives Matter and everything, and seeing how artists use that and use their voices for that as well. I think it will be really amazing to be able to look back on and see it all more clearly.
It's almost like, you know, I suppose some people might say, oh well, it's, you know, artists you know, being airy fairy whatever, but you know, sometimes, you know, things can be expressed better, or an individual can express things better by communicating through, you know, this visual kind of way than necessarily writing an essay or something, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes something visual can have way more of an impact than just words. Definitely. And I think artists have been doing that since the beginning of time, really. They've been putting artwork up on walls and around them, and reflecting what they're seeing, reflecting what they see quite literally, and reflecting how they think, and reflecting, you know, politics of the time and religion and society in general and how people think. I think art is very important in that way, even though people do think, oh, it's a bit of a hobby, or it's a bit airy fairy, or it's a bit. I think artists as well look at things in a way where they will take all different aspects on, all different sides on, all different information on, and really look at something and then reflect it back. And people don't always like the reflection, but you know, you have to do that, I think.
And is there anyone's, you know, are there any artists at the moment who you're kind of really into, kind of what they're, you know, what they're producing, what they're about?
Oh yeah, Lucy Byron's doing. I hope I've pronounced her second name right, actually. Lucy Byron. She's doing some cracking stuff at the moment. She's always quite political in her work, but during this time with the pandemic and with Black Lives Matter and everything, she uses like vintage little figurines at the moment, and then she's like changing them so that they'll be holding signs like Black Lives Matter is a recent one, or I bought one a couple of months ago where he's got like big bean tins and a mask and hoarding, and yeah, her work very much reflects like what's happening socially and politically. So I'm loving her work at the moment and what she's producing, definitely.
I'll have a check out.
Yeah, there's like real comedy to it at the same time. So yeah, I think you'll like her work.
Yeah, sounds good. It's nice to be able to put a light touch on a kind of dark time.
Yeah, I love that, and I love how artists can do that as well. Like they can turn it around and take the mickey out of something and say, and hold it up, taking the mickey and making it comedic. I think we can say a lot through comedy as well, like in that sense. Yeah,
very true. Well, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for sparing the time. It was a good chat.
Thank you. Hey, thank you. It's been nice chatting.